Welcome to the Mind Vault. If you've ever wondered why you do what you do, this channel is for you. We unlock the psychology behind your patterns, habits, and thoughts.
Hey everyone, today we're diving into something really fascinating and honestly a little bit chilling. It's a personality type that's been popping up all over the internet, and it takes our whole idea of empathy, that thing we think of as a force for good, and just flips it on its head. We are talking about the dark empath.
And this quote right here from The Guardian really gets to the heart of it. Narcissists, only more devious. It perfectly captures this paradox, right? They can seem so understanding, so in tune with you, but underneath it all, their intentions might be way, way darker. So how can someone seem so good and be so, evil? Let's unpack that.
All right, here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at where this whole idea even came from. Then, we'll get a really clear definition of what a dark empath actually is. We'll also see how they compare to a classic narcissist, which is super important. And then, we'll decode their masterclass in manipulation. And we're going to wrap up with what really matters, how you can protect yourself.
Now, you might have seen the term dark empath blowing up on platforms like TikTok. It has millions and millions of mentions. But this isn't just some social media trend. It's actually a concept that's grounded in some very real and very recent psychological research.
Yeah, the term first officially appeared in a 2021 paper in the journal Personality and Individual Differences. Researchers called it a novel psychological construct, which is basically science speak for, hey, we found something new here. It finally gave a name to this personality type that so many people were seeing in their own lives, but just couldn't quite put their finger on.
So, what is a dark empath? What are they made of? To really get it, you have to understand the two key ingredients that make them so uniquely dangerous: the dark personality traits they carry, and the very specific kind of empathy they've learned to use as a weapon.
Okay, so the foundation here is something psychologists call the dark triad. It's this nasty cocktail of three personality traits. You've got psychopathy, which brings that cold, callous side. You've got narcissism, which is all about grandiosity and feeling entitled to everything. And then you have Machiavellianism, which is just a fancy word for being a master manipulator, always plotting and scheming for your own gain. This is the dark part of the dark empath.
But here's the absolute game changer. Empathy isn't just one thing. There's affective empathy. That's when you actually feel someone else's pain in your own chest. It's a shared experience. But then there's cognitive empathy. That's the ability to understand on an intellectual level what someone is feeling and why. And this is the dark empath superpower. They can read you like a book, they know exactly what makes you tick, but they feel absolutely none of it. It's just data.
And this is where things get a little unsettling. In that original 2021 study, the researchers surveyed almost 1,000 people. And they found that this personality type wasn't some super rare thing. Nope, they found it in 19.3% of the people they studied. Let that sink in. That's nearly 1 in 5 people.
So, if they're that common, what is it that makes them so uniquely destructive? To really get a handle on the danger, it's incredibly helpful to compare them to a character we all know a little better, the traditional narcissist.
This chart really lays it all out. A classic narcissist is pretty clueless about other people's feelings. Their empathy is low to non-existent. But the dark empath? They understand your feelings with terrifying precision. And that means their manipulation isn't clumsy like a narcissist's. It's sophisticated, it's subtle. They're the charming person at the party everyone loves. But look at that last row, the trauma bond. With a narcissist, you're hooked on the highs and lows. With a dark empath, you become addicted to the intoxicating feeling of being, for the first time in your life, completely and totally understood.
Okay, so how do they actually do it? What does this masterclass in deception look like in the real world? Their manipulation is so effective because it's built on a foundation of real insight into your mind. Let's break down 3 of their go-to tactics.
First up, we've got something we can call the Tom Ripley effect. If you've ever seen the movie The Talented Mr. Ripley, you know he was a chameleon, able to become exactly who people wanted or needed him to be.
Well, a dark empath does this with scary precision. It's not just, liking the same bands as you. They absorb your deepest values, your secret hopes, your biggest fears, and then they reflect a perfect soulmate version of themselves right back at you. You feel this incredible rush of, oh my God, we're so alike. But this isn't connection, it's data collection.
It's building a fake bond, and fast.
The second tactic is what we'll call the Iago pattern, named after the villain from Shakespeare's Othello, who was an absolute master of psychological warfare. This is where a dark empath's knowledge of you really gets weaponized. Because they understand you so well, they know exactly which buttons to push to get a reaction. Imagine you're in an argument. Right when you think you're making a point, they'll bring up that deep insecurity you shared with them in a moment of vulnerability. They're not trying to understand you, they're trying to derail you, to make you feel ashamed or confused so they can win. It is a surgical strike right to your weak spots.
And for our final tactic, there's the Annie Wilkes syndrome from Stephen King's Misery. Remember Annie? She was her favorite author's #1 fan, and she used that so-called care to justify imprisoning and controlling him.
This is when the dark empath's understanding of you becomes a tool for ownership. They convince you they're the only person in the world who truly gets you, and they use that as leverage. Their support is totally conditional. As long as you do what they want, you get showered with that amazing feeling of being understood. But the second you step out of line, it's gone, and you're left scrambling to get back in their good graces.
Okay, so we've pulled back the curtain, we've seen how they operate. Now we get to the most important question of all. How in the world do you spot a dark empath, and how do you protect yourself from this kind of next-level manipulation?
Spotting them is so hard because they're so good at what they do. On the surface, they seem charming, kind, perfect even. But you just get this feeling in your gut, right? That little voice that says something is not quite right here.
Here's some of the big red flags to look out for. Their empathy might just feel performed, a little too perfect. They often use mean-spirited humor, little digs at others' expense that make them look superior. They are absolute wizards of the guilt trip. And here's a huge one. You find yourself constantly feeling confused. One minute you feel like you're being played, and the very next you feel terrible for ever doubting them because they get you so well. You need to learn to trust that gut feeling.
If any of this is sounding familiar, protecting yourself has to be priority #1. First, set firm boundaries. And when you set them, you don't argue, you don't explain, you don't justify. The boundary is the boundary. Second, put them on an information diet. Stop feeding them your vulnerabilities. It's just ammunition for later. Third, create emotional distance. Keep your conversations light and surface level. Stop trying to make them see your side. And finally, the most important step, build up your support system of people who give you real, genuine empathy. They'll be a reality check.
Which brings us to the last and maybe most important question you can ask yourself when you're dealing with someone like this. Real empathy, it connects people. It empowers them. It helps them grow. So what does their version of empathy do? It creates dependency. It creates confusion. It creates control. One builds a bridge between two people. The other builds a cage for one. And knowing that difference is everything.
If this opened your eyes, imagine what else is hiding in your mind. Don't forget to subscribe for weekly episodes that decode your brain, one pattern at a time. And if something clicked today, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, stay curious.